Alrighty, let's do this. So, Luongo. He retires yesterday, and today, doing it. THG Hall of Fame. Add it to the playlist. And, I've been a Luongo fan the whole way along. He's drafted number 4th overall, or he's drafted 4th overall. I don't say number 4th. Number 4 or 4th. Not number 4th. That's not a term. Thus, it's born. So number 4th overall is Roberto Luongo back in 1997. And when he's drafted that high up, there's some risk to that. He doesn't make the team out of the draft, and then 99-2000 comes along. He plays 24 games for the Islanders, 7 wins, 14 losses, and an overtime loss in there, or tie, because I understand this is going to be a mix of both. 3.25 goals against average, a .904 save percentage. He plays okay, and you get the feeling with the rookie that he's going to be something pretty good. And Mike Milbury figures in the 2000 draft, well, I'm drafting first. I like that DiPietro kid in net, so we don't need 2 starters. So between the two, Luongo's the one that can go. So June 24th, 2000, the New York Islanders, Mike Milbury, trades Luongo with Olli Jokinen as a throw-in for Mark Parrish and Oleg Kvasha. Parrish had a couple of good seasons as an Islander, but Luongo in Florida, it's right away, it's fantastic. 47 games played in 2000-2001, 12 wins, 24 losses, 7 overtime losses, 2.44 goals against, .920 save percentage. That save percentage was 7th overall that year. And for a team in Florida that was miserably bad. So right away, it's Luongo and Luongo and Luongo when you look at who the MVP for the Florida Panthers is, because they're not a very good team. 2001-2002, he plays 58 games, a record of 16, 33, and 4, 2.77 goals against average, .915 save percentage, which is 10th overall. And again, it's worthy of note that he's putting up good numbers on a really bad team. 2002-2003 plays 65 games, a record of 20, 34, and 7, 2.71 goals against average, .918 save percentage. This is why wins totals to me have always been kind of false. If we look in any one given season at who the best goaltender in the league is, you're not always going to say the guy who finished first in wins. You're not always going to look at that guy and go, he was the best goaltender this year. And this summer, that would be an interesting one to look at and say, who were statistically the best goaltenders, and not have wins be one of those big factors. Because Luongo has only won about 50 games so far in his career, and he's lost a ton of them. But in terms of how many are his fault, not many at all. 2003-2004, and this is when his reputation really, really steps up. He plays 72 games, his record of 25, 33, and 14. A goals against average of 2.43 and a save percentage of .931. So he has the 3rd best save percentage in the entire National Hockey League. He finishes 6th in Hart voting on a team that doesn't make the playoffs, and he finishes 3rd in the Vezina voting that year as well. Now, we lose a season. He's 2nd team All-Star before we lose a season. And the talk around the NHL at that point is Luongo's the best kept secret in the league. He plays in Florida. They're a miserably bad team. But he makes their results more respectable than they have any right to be. He's dragging them into overtime. He is the best goaltender in the league, is starting to become part of the conversation. Coming out of the lockout, 2005, he plays 75 games, has a record of 35, 30, and 9, 2.97 goals against average, and .914 save percentage, which is 9th. So save percentages take a hit coming out of the lockout, because the NHL starts cracking down on the trap. So his numbers are still decent. He finishes 7th in the Vezina voting. Dave Nonis is sat down. Who's the best goaltender in the league, they ask him on Hockey Night in Canada. And he says, before they can almost finish the question, Roberto Luongo. Nonis makes the trade that he really kind of ran on for the rest of the time he was a general manager in Vancouver. June 23rd of 2006. He is traded, Roberto Luongo, with Lukas Krejcik to the Canucks in exchange for Todd Bertuzzi, Brian Allen, and Alex Auld. The Canucks also got a 6th-round pick they used for Sergei Shirokov, who never ends up being anything at the NHL level. But Alex Auld had a decent year for Vancouver before that, and I guess Florida was thinking, well, we had him before, we know what Auld is. Looks like he's ready to be an NHL-level starter. And I think Florida was hoping that they could re-energize the career of Todd Bertuzzi, and of course that didn't work. The great player that Bertuzzi had been was no longer. And so Vancouver wins this trade going away. 2006-2007, it is a season for the ages. 76 games, 47, 22-6 record. That 47 wins wasn't first that year because that was the year that Marty Brodeur ended up beating the record, and he had 48 wins. So Luongo right there with him. Goals against of 2.28 and a save percentage of .921, which was 4th overall. He ends up being on the 2nd team All-Stars. He plays 12 games in the playoffs that year and has a record of 5-7. And this is when I start getting, I don't know. And again, am I completely removed from this? No. But he put up a goals against that year of 1.77 and a save percentage of .941. And yet all I heard around here locally was about how he'd allowed that goal in overtime against the Ducks, and he shouldn't have, because he quit on the play and he was expecting a penalty. The thing is, he had a .941 save percentage, a 1.77 goals against average. He was the only reason they beat Dallas in the first round. He was the only reason they were in the playoffs in the first place. There was an image that existed which showed the Canucks roster, 2007 playoff roster, and it's just Luongo. They photoshopped it so it's just Luongo and the rest of the bench is empty. And there's a reason for that. Now, he finishes 2nd in the Hart voting that year and 2nd in voting for Vezina. Now, if he'd won the Hart and the Vezina, we wouldn't have any debate about whether or not he's a Hall of Famer. Or would we? Of course we would. So 2007-2008, a lot of expectations. I really think the expectations for Luongo were insane. And it's because of contracts. So 2006, when he arrives in Vancouver, June 29, 2006, he signs a 4-year contract for $6.75 million a year. And the expectation was, guy'd better be the best goaltender every night then. So 07-08 we're going to go to. He finishes with a record of 35-29-9, 2.38 goals against, .917 save percentage. What's remembered about that season is that he had a bad last, I think it was 3 weeks of the season, and the Canucks fell out of a playoff spot. What I remembered was he was the only reason they were in a playoff spot in the first place. He ends up finishing 12th in Hart voting because everybody knows he's the MVP for the Canucks. He finishes 7th in Vezina voting as well, despite that fall at the end of the season. And again, the criticism that he would get from media and from some fans, I'm not saying the majority, it was never the majority, but there was that criticism of, oh, look, see what $6.75 million gets you? Can't even get in the playoffs with him. He's not very good. To which I remember thinking, oh, did these people not watch what we had in net, the goalie chaos we had for the 10 years before he got here? So, coming out of that, in 2008, the Canucks made a mistake. They named him team captain. Mike Gillis, in his infinite wisdom, and anybody that would argue Mike Gillis should be a general manager again in the NHL, I present to you a very good reason why that's a bad idea. Roberto Luongo's named captain. It's not a bad idea for Luongo. Luongo, absolutely. Captain material? Yes. 100% yes. Leader of the team? Absolutely. Are they in the playoffs without him? No. But really, in all honesty, you can't have a captain who's in net because he's in net. So when all these arguments are going on with referees, he's in net. You need a captain who's at center ice and is in and amongst all of this stuff. Luongo did the best he could, but the perception was that it weighed on him. He plays 54 games that year. There were injury concerns that started taking place. 33-13-7 record, 2.34 goals against, .920 save percentage, which is 5th overall in the NHL. In the playoffs in 2009, he finishes with a record of 6-4 in 10 games, 2.52 goals against, .914 save percentage. He's 10th in Hart voting and 4th in Vezina voting. And then it happens again. So he gets shelled by the Blackhawks. Chicago shells Luongo and the Canucks. And the point that I had made at the time, and I still make this now, is there were a lot of shots that Chicago had that was right between the hash marks in front of the net. And then when you looked at where the Canucks were getting their shots from, they were getting a lot of shots from the outside and from way back. And Chicago was blocking Vancouver out of the middle really, really well. They were protecting their goaltender, whereas Vancouver was just letting Chicago tee up. So Luongo put up some ugly numbers, but if you look at highlights from those games, most of those shots are just dead on straight in front of the net. And you know, it definitely affected how people saw him. And that's why I think we still have this debate about, well, should he be in? Should he not? So 2009-2010, the second year that he's captain, he plays 68 games, a record of 40, 22, and 4. And it's at this point that there's some complaining about how much Luongo's playing. That Vigneault just basically goes to Lou and, you want to play? And Lou goes, yep. Because Luongo won't admit that maybe he's hurting. Luongo won't admit that maybe he needs a night off because he feels, in part because of that contract he's got, I got to go in the net. I got to prove that I'm worth the money. He puts up a record of 40, 22, and 4, which is amazing. 2.57 goals against. But the .913 save percentage shows that he wasn't really as consistent that year. And there were fans, including myself, that felt he was being overplayed. And then he'd play through injuries as well, which I think is part of the reason why, he had an amazing career. I think he could have gone on longer if he'd rested some of those injuries. Now, in the playoffs, he goes 6-6 in 12 games, 3.23 goals against, .895 save percentage. He finished 10th in Vezina voting that year. And this was where the whole Chicago thing really gets ugly. So they get out of the first round, but what people remember is the second round where things just fall apart against Chicago. And again, it's the same thing. Chicago, I believe, was up 3-1 in that series and then won it in 6. It was one of those things where Vancouver won Game 5 and I went, yeah, they're not coming back. It's not happening. So what people remembered was that he got shelled. And now we're starting to hear conversations about Corey Schneider. Corey Schneider is going to become the starter. He's the future. He's going to be the guy. And, the current guy's right here. It kind of felt like moving your new girlfriend into the house before the old girlfriends moved out. That's how uncomfortable things were in Vancouver at that point. 2010-2011, miraculously, he wins the Jennings Trophy. Plays 60 games, 38, 15, and 7 record, 2.11 goals against, .928 save percentage. He finishes third in save percentage that year. His numbers come up in part because he plays 8 less games because he's got a very capable backup named Corey Schneider. But he's looking over his shoulder at Corey Schneider because that's the new girlfriend, and the fans really want to spend time with the new girlfriend because at this point we're already hearing a lot of rumblings about Schneider. Maybe we could go with Corey. And this is a market that had talked about Raycroft in years previous as well. I remember people saying, Raycroft should play more. I don't know. Raycroft's pretty good. And thinking, Raycroft? So, 2011, he plays 25 games in the playoffs, gets 15 wins, 10 losses, 2.56 goals against average, .914 save percentage. Hart voting, he's 17th, and in the Vezina, he finishes third in the voting. But what everybody remembers, what everybody recalls, is how the meltdown took place against the Bruins. One reason, and I still believe this, that the Vancouver Canucks didn't win a Stanley Cup in 2011 is because they didn't play Corey Schneider on the road. Now, he had a great first 3 rounds, did Luongo. He really did. He played well against Chicago. He played well against the Sharks. He played well against Nashville. Gets into the finals against Boston, and it was like what Pekka Rinne went through in 2017 in Pittsburgh. Just, there was something mentally that wasn't there. The whole Canucks team was kind of off, and then in Game 7 at home, the entire Canucks team falls apart. So, of course, locally, we'll blame it all on Luongo and say we should have played Schneider the whole way. My point was, Game 6 in Boston, they should have thrown Schneider in just to give Boston a different look, just to do something a little different. And I think if they had, they probably win that night. I think they probably win it in 6. But, again, the blame comes down on him. So, 2011-2012, we start that awkward situation where you feel like the old girlfriend's starting to move out and the new girlfriend's putting her stuff in there. 55 games played, 31-14-8 record, 2.41 goals against, 919 save percentage. Not a great year for Roberto. And his numbers are being bettered by Corey Schneider. So again, as the season goes along, the fans are more and more and more like, okay, we've got to move on from Luongo. The problem is, when we go back to 2009, when he's captain, he signed a 12-year extension for $64 million. You'll notice the cap hit was $5.33 million. His cap hit came down by $1.4 million while he was still in his prime because they did some cap circumvention, magic. And because of the cap circumvention, of course, his contract sucks. Those are his words, not mine. And so, you know, for Luongo, this is an uncomfortable time. He only plays 2 games in the playoffs, 2 losses, 3.59 goals against, 891 save percentage, because they're trying to hand it over to Corey Schneider during the playoffs. So 2012, they get eliminated in the first round, and the media is just all over this idea that yeah, he's got to go. He's got to go. That's it. So 2012-2013, he's basically playing a backup role. 20 games played, 9-6-3 record. This, of course, is a lockout-shortened season of 48 games. 2.56 goals against, 907 save percentage. He plays 3 games in the playoffs. Records 2 losses in those 3 games. 2.58 goals against, 915 save percentage. And I'm at this point, you know, Luongo's play had slipped, but it felt like they kept pulling the rug out from under him, and they're heading for a divorce. So what happens? Well, see, they decided to trade Schneider. And so the new girlfriend gets thrown out, and they kind of tell the old girlfriend, who's already got half of her crap out in the moving van, come on and move back in, to which Luongo, the old girlfriend's like, I'm already halfway out the door. Why? So you send Tortorella down to talk to him, and, hey, you want to come back? And okay, fine. Then the awkwardness starts, where now Schneider's gone, and now Eddie Lack is stealing starts from Luongo. Now, I'm not going to throw any shade at Lack, or even at Tortorella necessarily, because Lack was playing well. But there were certain instances where it felt like Luongo should have played and didn't. And the Heritage Classic is the big one. That is the big shining beacon that people will point to even until this day. Where Tortorella decides to play Lack instead of Luongo in this big BC Place Heritage game that really Luongo should have played in. Luongo plays 42 games in Vancouver that year, 19-16-6 record, 2.38 goals against, 917 save percentage, and then he gets traded. Now, he gets traded back to Florida March 4th of 2014 with Steven Anthony. And if you don't know who he is, he didn't play in the NHL. The Canucks get back Jacob Markstrom and Sean Mathias. Sean Mathias, it was a known fact that Vancouver had coveted him for quite a while. And Vancouver fans thought that his combination of size and youth, and he was a center, yeah, bring him in. That's what we need, is that big, strong center. That doesn't necessarily work, but we know that Markstrom has become a pretty decent starter for Vancouver. It took a while, but he's got there. Now, once he gets back to Florida, Luongo can relax and just be himself. Plays 14 games after that trade, a 6-7-1 record, 2.46 goals against, and his save percentage goes back up to .924. And as soon as he's in a Florida jersey, as soon as he can stop worrying about losing his job, he's actually a pretty good goaltender again. Who knew? 2014-2015 plays 61 games, a record of 28, 19, and 12. Goals against of 2.35, save percentage of .921. His numbers are great. The problem is he's back in Florida. So, you know, for Roberto, it's sad because people are going to say, well, you know, he got a lot of wins, but he played for great teams. He really didn't. He had a couple of good seasons there with Vancouver where the team was pretty darn good. Almost any win that he's had to claw and dig his way to get. 2015-2016, he plays 62 games, 35, 19, and 6 record, 2.35 goals against, 922 save percentage. And for the only time in his career in Florida, they don't screw up. They make the playoffs. He plays 6 playoff games, 2 wins and 4 losses, puts up a goals against of 2.05 and a save percentage of .934. Thank you very much. Luongo played great in those playoffs. He finishes 15th in Hart voting and 4th in Vezina voting. And this is not that long ago. This is 2016. This is 3 years ago. And as sad as it is, you know, when he's ninth in the overalls when it comes to your save percentage, you know he's getting older. So 2016, 2017 plays 40 games, record of 17, 15, and 6. 2.68 goals against average, 915 save percentage. Decent numbers, split in the net. 2017, 2018. Injuries are a real issue now. Plays 35 games, 18, 11, and 2 record. But when he's healthy, he has a 2.47 goals against, a 929 save percentage, which is 3rd in the National Hockey League. He finishes 9th in Vezina voting because he only played 35 games. And if a goaltender plays less games, they usually get less votes. This year seemed to have been a little different that way. The season that just finished, the one he just retired from, 43 games played, 18, 16, and 5 record, 3.12 goals against, 899 save percentage. The lowest save percentage of his career, the highest goals against average he had recorded since his rookie year where he had the 3.25. And his body says, yeah, Roberto, it's time to pull the plug. His overall numbers. He has 77 career shutouts. That's 9th on the all-time list. He does have a Jennings trophy. He's a second-team guy twice. He was team captain for 2 years before he said, this is enough crap for me. I don't want to do that. And not surprisingly, the year he dropped the captaincy in Vancouver, his play gets better, and he wins the Jennings trophy that he shares with the new girlfriend, Corey Schneider, who would leave. 1,044 games played. That's 2nd on the all-time list. 489 wins, which is 3rd on the all-time list, behind Marty Brodeur and Patrick Waugh. He has 392 losses, which I have to say is 2nd on the all-time list. So, worthy of note, yes, he does have the largest number of losses, minus one player. And his overtime losses, I think he sits currently in 12th in that category, or 10th. He's in around that range. But his save percentage, career, is 10th. He is all-time 10th in save percentage. Now, what's odd is he's right behind Corey Schneider. Corey Schneider currently sits at 9th. So their numbers seem to intertwine a lot over the years, even though they haven't been on the same team for a long time. But yeah, so does that mean Corey Schneider goes to Florida? Is that confirmed? No. But an amazing career, lots of great stories with Luongo, and for my money, he was the best goaltender Vancouver ever had. And I think, you know, if he had been drafted by Detroit and played his career in Detroit, if not for being traded to Vancouver, if he'd gone to a market where they're not going to make him captain, and you're not going to have this constant debate about whether or not he should be the starter. Just, I don't know. It was weird to me how as soon as he comes in and signs that contract for $6.75 million a year, the expectation was crazy. But I know there's detractors as well, and I understand that. But he's, for me, the best goalie that Vancouver ever had, and by far the best goaltender Florida's ever had. And time will tell whether or not that's a Hall of Fame career. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.